Hey, friend, welcome to the podcast. You Are Significant, the podcast where you will hear real stories from real people and we will get down into the truths of your own significance. You were created on purpose for a purpose with seeds of greatness inside of you. Now, let's get down to it. I'm so excited to have Laura Ard back with us today. She has been a guest early
Mhm.
in the history of You Are Significant. And I definitely love to invite guests to come back on this podcast because life continues and there's ups and downs and ins and outs. And as we continue our journey, then God shows us more moments where He is the most significant in our life and where we have significance as well. And our perspective changes. One of the things that reminds me of this is the daily Bible reading that I do each day and each year. And every time I go back through and read again, I notice different things.
Mm.
And so, do you find that to be true for you?
I do, and I love pulling it from different readings just to get
Yeah.
another feel on that scripture. Yeah.
Yeah, I love to read different versions,
Mhm,
whether it's switching from King James to NIV to English Standard, or even comparing with the Living Bible or the Message as like
mhm,
a commentary on
mhm,
literal translation. But yeah, even when we read for fun books, sometimes it's like I thought I remembered this book, and I feel like I don't remember it at all. Reading
yeah,
it,
yeah,
it's because we're in a different place in our
mhm,
life, and what's
mhm.
standing out to us is different. So thank you so much for coming back on,
Yeah,
Laura. Glad to have you.
yeah. Yeah, I'm glad to be back here. I mean, I don't know, it's been a while.
It's
Definitely
already
been a
been a
while.
year.
It
Yeah,
has, yeah, I thought
right
it's
at a
probably,
year.
yeah, I was thinking it's probably been about a year already, and that just tells you how fast our years go by.
Yes.
Um, and a lot's changed in that year. You know,
Yeah.
like you said, life continues on, even after. And, um, when I was telling you my story, I was in the midst of, with my husband being ill, and we had to pivot big time in that year. And we had to move and readjust. And, our job was stopped immediately because we couldn't travel with him being ill. And I was looking back, and if you want to think about some God moments, if Tim had not heard the whisper from me and
Mhm.
God, but I had him put in his head about him starting a program to coach other men and doing our program and doing our training and being out there working for our retirement is what we were planning.
Mhm.
And he prayed on that, and he came up with a legacy program, and
Mhm.
he trained 12 guys. And out of that, we had 3 incredible men take root. And it was so beautiful how God knew what was coming for us, how we would be needing those guys.
Mhm.
And this whole past year, they worked for us out there training, and that brought some income to us, but it also kept our programs alive and kept our training alive. It didn't have to go dead in the water just because we couldn't be training.
Mhm.
And it also put one of our gentlemen be able to take our company over this past January, and he will keep those guys working. So God just had his hand in that the whole time, making sure that we had his legacy to continue.
I love how you took your significance and the talent Tim had, as a was he a chainsaw master? Is
Yes,
that
he's
what you
chainsaw
called him?
safety training all over the country. He developed his programs, and it's been out there for over 30 years.
Wow.
He's nationally known.
Mhm.
And, when it's a one man band kind of thing, how quickly that can die out. And you're like, no, this can't die because what he's taught and what he's brought to this arena of chainsaw users, um, is valuable. And
Yeah,
I've gotten message after message after message of how he has impacted their life, and they've
well,
been able to go home safely to their family.
it takes a lot of humility to be willing to release that
Mm,
control to
mhm,
expand.
Yeah.
It takes really wisdom. Like, God says, pray and ask for wisdom. That takes humility for a
Mhm.
man. I
Mhm.
think, especially, that's something is um, one thing in my own journey as a Christian, as I've grown, is looking for men who pray.
Mm.
There's a
Mhm.
lot of even godly men that
They
just
don't
are
pray.
not men
Mhm.
of prayer.
Right.
So when you find men of prayer and you see men who say, "Hey, let's pray," before they teach a class or
Mhm.
before they get started even on,
Mhm.
something in the secular world they're doing,
Yeah.
um, it just speaks volumes, and so I just see a lot of wisdom in how Tim was willing to invite 12, and we see 12 as being a Jesus number.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was
Well,
because it's what I had experienced, and I'm like, I've gotten valuable coaching and, learning techniques, and also now a lady, opened up her coaching to be able for us to go out and use her program. And I said, that's what you could do. And
mm,
what that would bring out there, touching the people that you want to continue to be touched by your knowledge. And I said, I know it's scary because it's your information and you created it and you don't want them to take it and go change it. That
right,
was his fear. He was so afraid that they would take something, but then they wanna add all this other stuff, and
mm,
it didn't need all that other stuff. We've done it for 30 years, not needing anything else, preaching the same thing to a different choir, he'd always say, different faces, but same words.
right,
Always. I didn't change it, and always people would say, "How do you sit there and listen to that over and over?" And I said, "Because every time it was a new audience, it was a new him." I mean, he was just light up, and it didn't seem old or the same. And
mm,
yeah, I could repeat every word he said because it's the same thing. And I
mhm,
think that's his integrity
mm,
carried through like that to these people. And
mm,
he knew the ones that would be like, I want to add this and I want to add that. Then they're not meant for that. They're not meant to carry on his legacy. They'll
mhm.
start their own programs.
I think there's strength in that though, because like even going back to our example of reading the Bible, it's the same words
Yes.
every year.
Yes.
It's the
Yes.
same. It didn't change, but because we're reading it again, it goes deeper into us.
Mhm.
And when you have a
Each season of our
program with
life, it comes
consistency,
yeah.
consistency always wins in learning a system and learning how to do something and teach something. So that I think that's just more wisdom that he didn't change it at all,
Mhm.
that he kept
Mhm.
it because it worked.
Yeah. We're batting 1,000, he'd always say. "Why do
Mhm,
I wanna change things?"
mhm,
Yeah, there's new techniques, and he would bring in the newness, but he had a way of doing that, that it didn't throw his scale he was very systematic.
mm.
Everything was done in a timing, and he knew, and we all knew it. It was just part of who he was. And so, the guys are gonna do a fabulous job with it. I trust them. I
Yeah,
believe in them. I know the respect they have for Tim, and
mhm.
so I know that it'll carry on the way it's supposed to with these 3 gentlemen, so I'm very, very pleased with that.
That's a really neat part of your journey in the last year of how
Yeah,
things are gonna continue on even past him, that he's
yeah,
that legacy.
yeah.
So
It's
tell us
important.
more about your journey in the last year.
Well, in the beginning of the year, I was still doing some traveling and, being a part in the things that I like to do and being, growing in my businesses, and then about October, um, I saw a decline.
Mhm.
It's very raw
Yeah,
right now,
it's okay. We're here with you.
but I knew he didn't wanna go to the hospital because he had chosen he's, at peace, and he didn't wanna get any more treatments,
Mhm.
and so we had the conversation that I didn't wanna have,
Yeah.
and I said, "Maybe it's time that we bring in a hospice, and that way we have the support that we
Mm,
need," and he agreed, and so I got that set up in October, and we thought, just once a week, have the nurse come in and check him just to keep a roll on things. If he needs medication, we can get that for him. And he is a gentleman that did not like to take medicine and would suck it
mhm.
up. and take more pain than he should, and he had over the last 2 years. And, I said to him, "Sometimes we have to take a little. I know you're strong, but there's no sense in it that you sit here and suffer. You don't need to anymore," you
Yeah.
know? So he did start with a very small patch, to start help managing pain because it was getting harder.
Yeah.
And, October, November, we had the kids came in, we had Thanksgiving, did things here. I just still did a little things close by, but I wasn't feeling good enough to go further away from him
Mm,
because the way he was changing. Um, and then in December, we had Christmas, and thank God for that. And January, I noticed that his eating was getting less, and it was getting to where he was more of a liquid type things that we had to have. And, um, you watch them. It's the hardest thing in the world.
yeah. Yeah. I know that we really just can't imagine how hard that was because, if we imagine even just one part of that, then it was day after day of that. So God has grown your strength through
I
this.
don't yeah, I couldn't do it on my own. There's no way. I mean, every day when you'd wake up and go in there and you knew that he's getting closer to Jesus than he is this world,
Mhm.
and he felt like he couldn't swallow, and so the nurse, without doing any tests or anything, we kinda figured maybe the cancer had started settling in his esophagus area and whatever because he was having a very hard time swallowing, so he was sipping on Coke or ginger ale, a little bit of water, excuse me, and, February, his main thing was maybe some soup. I had him on some protein shakes,
Mhm.
but I watched it get less and less. I'd fix it, and maybe 2 sips would be gone, but he couldn't finish it. And then he started wanting craziest thing in February, watermelon. And I'm like, "Honey, it's not even the season, but I will find it." And Publix had it, and it was the only one that had kind of a taste because it just doesn't. It's not the season. And, he couldn't swallow it, but he would suck on it.
Mhm.
And then he would spit it out, and that gave him some relief, some fluid, but not enough,
Mhm.
going in. I would say probably February, we had gotten the side chair toilet, and I know this is getting really deep, but it is what it is because it's
Yeah,
life. It's what we did, and,
it is.
um, he would use that at night, but then that only lasted maybe a week, and then it became, "I can't get out of bed." And
Yeah.
I was like, "It's okay, you know, I'll take care of you." And, the nurses were so kind, they kept saying, "Why don't we see a CNA and let them take care of him and do it?" And I said, "Why?
Mm.
I've got it, and if I feel like I can't,
Mhm.
then they can come, but
Right.
he's mine, and in sickness and in health,
Yeah.
I'll take
Yes.
care of him."
Yeah. What a beautiful love that y'all had all the way till the end. Yeah.
It was incredible. I knew the last week it wasn't gonna be long, and it was on Thursday. I told the nurse that morning they were coming every day for the last 2 weeks, because they saw the change too, and they knew that he was transitioning. And, I said, "It's gonna be by this weekend, if not sooner." And so, that afternoon about 5 o'clock, my son calls because I had told him that earlier in that day, I said, "I don't think it's gonna be long."
Mm.
And he said, "Well, mom, I'm back in Atlanta because he's a truck driver all the way to Odessa, Texas, and back every day."
Oh, wow.
And they turn around doing it. And he said, "I got in really early tonight." He said, "Do you think I should come on home?" And I was like, as a mama, I'm like, "No, babe, go on to work and I'll call you, maybe he'll make it through Saturday and you'll be home." And we hung up the phone and I sat there looking at Tim and I said, "Hey, babe, do you think Tony should come home tonight? He's in Atlanta really early." And I said, "Do you think he should come home tonight?" I said, "If you do, wave." And he just started waving. And I'm like, "Oh God, okay." And I called Tony back and I said, "Come home." Tim said, "Come home." And he got home and got showered and came on over to the house, and thank God he was here with me.
Yeah. Yeah. That you didn't have to be alone. Yeah.
Um, and, we talked to him, and he was so fidgety and uncomfortable, and because all the circulation was going away, and I said, "Honey, I can give you just a little something to
Mhm.
let you feel a little less pain, a
Mhm.
little discomfort, and make this trip easier," you know? And he put his fist up, and he's like, "He don't want any medicine." And I'm like, "Okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
I will hold your hand." And about I guess about 2:30, he said, "Sit me up." I said, "Okay,"
Mhm.
because he had gotten scrunched down in the bed. And so me and Tony lifted him up, and the next thing I saw was his eyes fixated on heaven,
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
and he was gone within about 5 minutes.
Wow.
He met Jesus.
He had a certain way that he
Yeah.
wanted to go that
Yeah, he wanted to
I
be
could
up.
visualized it.
Yeah, he wanted to be up, and so I stood there with him, and I
Yeah.
could just see his heart rate, and everything slow way down
Mhm.
in his last breath, and I said, "That's it, he's home."
He's home. What a strong man.
Yeah,
What
all the way to the end.
all the way to the end.
Such courage.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing this story. I know it's so hard to tell, but
It's
it
2 weeks, 2 weeks without him.
yeah. I know that's it's, like, raw, and at the same time, I'm imagining the numbness too.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, I just like the last few days because you're still having to go through so many different things, like picking up his death certificates yesterday, and I'm like, "Is this really real?" You know?
yeah.
I mean, and then you question. I mean, don't judge because everybody does question God, like, why and what was your purpose in taking him now? You
Yeah.
know, what we still had so much to do, in
Mm,
life.
mhm.
Why have you chosen me to do this part alone? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I may not get answers to that, or I might. He may show me in time.
Mhm.
But my husband kept telling me, holding my hand, "You stay strong." That's all he kept telling me. "You stay strong."
He wanted you to keep living, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he set me up. I'm taken care of. Um, it's just a lot. It's a lot. You try to sympathize with people that have lost their spouse, or it's totally different than the loss of my mother or the
Mhm.
loss of my father-in-law. I was with them, but losing your spouse is a whole 'nother level.
Yeah.
And, we were to celebrate 28 years, March 28th.
Oh,
And I'm like, those 28 years of love and commitment to each other.
yeah.
God blessed me with that. He
Mhm.
gave me something I never thought I could have
Mm,
after what I had in a
mhm.
marriage, of 15 years of narcissist and craziness. And God said, "No, I got better for you, babe. It's
Mhm.
coming." And boy, did it. I
Yeah.
mean, he gave me a man of first loved God more than anything, loved me, loved his family, lived out his purpose God called him to do,
Mhm.
and stayed steady with that. He never wavered. He never wavered. I was trying to think of how many times we maybe didn't speak for a few hours. I mean, Darlene, I can count maybe a dozen times in those
Mhm.
28 years that
Mhm.
we felt discord or upset that we just had to go separate ways for a little while, you know?
And y'all
And
work
but
together,
we live
y'all
in a RV,
travel.
you can't go very far from each other, so let me tell you, yeah.
This isn't a couple that,
No,
that were 8, 10 hours apart a day.
no,
Y'all
we
work
were
together
all the time.
and traveled together, so
Yeah, and
it
when we were
was
separate, we felt it, I'd get messages every single day, "I miss you, I love you, you belong here with me," and I would say the same, when I'd almost have guilt to go do my travel, 'Cause I'm
Mhm.
like, "Oh, he should be with me, experiencing this," you know? But,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
he even talked about all my year coming up, and he's like, "You've got so many great things planned. Do them. Don't slack on it." He bought me a new computer because he knows all the podcast stuff I'm doing, gave me an external drive to have all the room to store stuff. I mean, he set me up for my success because he believed that much in me.
Yeah. That is significant too,
Yeah,
Laura, because so many men struggle to empower their wife
yeah,
and their wife's talents that God
yeah,
has given them. And to see a man in Tim that saw it as another way that you were a blessing to him
yeah,
rather than as competition.
right?
He wasn't insecure, he was secure
Well,
and lived that out.
I was telling Alejandro last night because you know how people talk being about being a six-figure incomer, and I never had taken that title on.
Mhm,
And I thought during the other night, I am a six-figure incomer, and I didn't even accept that as something of me because I didn't think I was worthy of it or could claim it. But
mhm,
that business Tim and I built,
mhm.
I was very part of that, big
Yeah,
time. You
y'all
know,
were partners.
yeah, and I'm like, "Well, I was a six-figure incomer," and
Yeah,
that felt pretty darn good to even to say that, you know?
yeah.
I thought I had to be at some level on my own power, which
Mhm,
it's never on our own power, y'all, it's
mm,
God. But, you know, because that business belonged to him. I
mhm.
mean, I had this whole year filled for those guys with business. I didn't hand them an empty business and say, "Hey, go get the work." We handed them a full calendar.
Wow.
And with customers that believed in us enough to trust us to take on the new guy and
Mm,
say, "Well, if Tim says and Laura says, then we're good. We'll
mhm.
stay with them, not go search out other training." And just have that opportunity to live the life I lived with him because he answered an ad in the paper I put in. You
That's
know?
awesome.
I mean, how God thing is that?
28 years ago, that's what you
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. I put
Mhm.
it in online
Yeah.
in the Atlanta Constitution paper what I was looking for in a man, and
Mm,
he answered.
wow.
And it's been I mean, we knew as soon as we met at each saw each other, we knew. We were married within 2 weeks. I mean, 2 months.
Mhm. Wow.
And just, you know, like I said, we've traveled all over the country. We got to go to Hawaii several times and work out there because of who he was and what he represented, and first and foremost, God. And that's what all these comments have come back. First, they saw Jesus, they saw his wisdom and the knowledge of what he taught, and they saw the love of us too.
Mhm.
And you don't think that means anything to people that you're working with, but then that just shows you they are looking at you. They see
Mhm.
you. They
Yeah.
see how you act with each other. They see how you treat each other when you're in front of everybody and around people. And they'd always say they feel that love. They felt the love that
Yeah.
we had.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. And that's part of your legacy.
Mhm.
The love that you both have, and I see that in, getting to work with you in the podcasting arena, the love, the caring, the compassion, the
Mhm.
patience, even as driven as you are, that the love that you have
Mhm.
for Jesus and for
Yeah.
others overrides
Mhm.
personality where you might if you do feel frustrated, I don't ever feel like you take that out on me. You're
I
patient.
think the biggest thing and when you do feel frustrated, a lot of times it's probably I think, "Oh, I failed them some way or I did something wrong." But I've learned in my time with God, because 'cause I've really grown close to him over the last couple of years and
Mhm,
being very adamant about my time with him
mhm,
in the mornings. That's Jesus' time, and that's his, and that's where I can tell him my stuff, you know? You don't
mhm,
have to share your frustration back at the person. Tell
mhm.
Jesus, let him handle it. Let him handle the figuring it all out, you know, kinda thing, and I just rely more on him than anything now. I know that he's gonna carry me through, and I have 2 little verses that I keep here on my desk. It says, "Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.
Mm, so true. What a comfort.
You're never alone. You're not. You
Mm,
may feel it because of the humanness is not here, but he's here with me.
Yeah.
And then the joy of the Lord is your strength.
Mm.
And I know my
I
joy
love
comes from
that.
him.
Mhm.
And that's how I smile still. I still wake up happy, even in the sadness that is so deep.
Mm. There's still joy. You're
Yeah,
still finding the joy because
yeah,
of the Lord, even
right.
in your deep grief.
And I see how God put me in the rooms that he did last year and the opportunities he gave me because he knew that I needed that for my future
Mhm.
to carry on,
Mhm.
and to make income and to survive in this world
Mm,
until we go home,
mhm.
But my biggest want in that is whatever he gives me, let me give that back tenfold to others to serve and however he can use me because I don't want people to come in my arena without knowing the love of Jesus.
Amen. I love that, Laura. That's so beautiful. And that's your I would say the theme of this episode today has been Jesus, and
Mhm.
that he is the most significant, and he's been there with you through all of this,
All
all
of
this
it.
hardness, losing just seeing Tim decline and
Mhm.
suffer, and then his really victory moment when he
Yeah.
went home and he sat
Yeah.
up and he opened his eyes, and wow, what a
Yeah. I
beautiful.
knew he was seeing heaven. I mean, it was just so fixated, and they can say what they want people, but I just knew he's like, he's ready. I'm
Yeah.
home.
Oh,
And then too, I can't say enough about the community and the people that have surrounded me and contacted me and come to me and in all shapes and forms of how they've communicated,
mm,
y'all's love for us and me. Again, that sustains me daily. The little texts, the little prayers over me, the little gifts. It's just what is carrying me through.
oh. Well, you have a lot of love with you, so many people that do love you and care, and you aren't alone. Um, and, because energy is so how we're made, our
Mhm.
cells are made of that. And that is not limited to physical, that
Right.
carries us and connects us in the spiritual world.
Mhm.
So, you
Yes.
are definitely loved and hugged and touched, and we're so, so blessed by you because we feel your love back, and I just think, wow, what a strength you have in this time, and I'm so thankful for what God is going to do
Yeah.
in your future, because he has allowed you to have the journey that you've had, to be in a relationship that was toxic, and then to be so, so, so loved and
Yeah.
supported and loved back. And so it'll be another beautiful chapter as you
Yeah,
heal.
well. Mhm.
So thank you so much for joining me today, Laura.
I'm
Um,
sorry, all the bucket of tears. I mean, that's just
mhm.
I can hardly speak, right now, but that's okay. God blessed me with that too. I say he gave me the gift of tears and I
Yeah,
accept them and let them flow when they need to. So, if
here's
anyone is struggling through this or have been through a loss, let's connect, I think supporting each other, encouraging each other. I made a comment in one of the little groups I already have joined and I said, I don't want to be here to stay in this like we're always sad kind of thing, because I think sometimes you focus on the sadness more and you can't rejoice. You can't be happy about all the things you did have. So I try to say, okay, we are sad and I'm going to cry, but I also want to be celebrating.
so
We're going to have his celebration of life in a couple of weeks or next Saturday.
mhm,
And I told him all about it. I had a dream of what I thought I could do because I'm like, I don't even know what I want to do for him and what he wants. And I told him all about it, and he just kept saying, "Thank you. Thank you. That's perfect." And so I'm very thrilled to what we've come up with and can stay and just hear the stories again of all the guys that'll get up and people that'll get up and speak and share about how he touched their lives. It's gonna be beautiful.
oh, I'm coming to the
Yay.
celebration of
I'm
life,
so
so,
glad I get to
um,
hug your neck. Oh,
yes, I
that'll be
can't wait to
beautiful.
be with you in person,
I'm so glad.
And I know it's going to be just what Tim wanted and what the Lord has in
Yes, he'll
mind.
be in it, all in it. Yeah.
It'll be an inspiration,
Mhm.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
Alri
that's how both of y'all always have been, Tim and Laura.
Yeah. Well,
So
thank you for having me again. I appreciate you and love you so much.
I love you too. Y'all make sure to check out Laura's podcast, Voice Unbound, and her coaching program as well. And I'll have more in the show notes for you to find Laura to connect. Thank you for tuning in to You Are Significant. I hope this episode inspired you to embrace your own God given purpose. If this episode inspired you and blessed you, would you please share it out with a friend who needs to be reminded of their own significance? And remember to hit subscribe. Until next time, remember to walk in faith, find the joy, and stand in your significance.